Hey there, change agents. Tim Kelley again. I want to talk to you about another interesting thing that I think is very important for change agents to consider. Let me start with a little story here. So last few weeks I've been in Israel working with business, government, military leaders about finding the higher purpose of Israel. While I was there, with a colleague of mine, Ora Gavrieli, who's a very talented change agent who teaches voice dialogue, a favorite technique of mine. We led a training for change agents at a place called City Tree, which was a small community of environmental activists. And I had an interesting debate with them because they were talking about their mission of being sort of converting one person at a time to a much higher environmental awareness. And I don't know how it is like where you live, but the folks in Israel that I see are kind of behind the game versus the folks here in the Netherlands where I am now, or in California where I live, in terms of recycling and other issues of environmental awareness. And I had an interesting debate with them because they were operating from the assumption that if they transformed lots of individual people, that would then necessarily result in a change in the system. And I've done a lot of training in systems change and organization development theory, and I've learned that that isn't necessarily the case. Systems are actually extremely challenging to change. So I've known people who are, for example, coaches, who will become skillful coaches and eventually at some point get into business, start coaching business leaders, start coaching lots of people in a company, and they get stuck in this same thing that if I just coach enough individuals in this company, it will transform the company. Well, interestingly, an organization has its own personality. We call it like a company culture. It has its own purpose. It has its own limiting beliefs, distinct from the individuals that comprise that organization. It's as if it's a separate living entity that has its own personality, its own psyche, which means that touching an individual with the system won't necessarily change the system itself. Even if you did an intervention with every single individual in the system, it still wouldn't necessarily alter the system itself. Which means if you're a change agent who's called to create great things, you need to learn at least a little bit about systems change and how to influence organizations and company cultures and perhaps larger systems. I'm doing country level interventions in Colombia and Israel. So learning how to do this, and especially learning how to do this in a new paradigm way, I would argue is key training, something you need to develop as a change agent, especially if you're interested in getting into consulting, that is to start doing your blessing, doing your transformational process to organizations rather than only to individuals, right? And many change agents eventually start to grow out of what I call practitioner mode, where they start to feel like, well, at some point I need to do it faster, more effectively than one person at a time. A common way of doing that is public speaking, which works quite well, but the transformational impact is kind of shallow. And another way is workshops and teleseminars, where you're transforming many individuals at once. That can be very effective. But a whole other ball of wax, a whole other higher level intervention is transforming systems. Now, the workshop is not entirely about this, but at the upcoming Advanced Change Agent Training in January 11th through 16th at the Institute of Noetic Sciences at the offices of the Shift Network, we will be spending a bunch of time on looking at systems and systems change and system level beliefs and behavior, especially from the point of view of a new paradigm change agent. Because some of the old systems change techniques actually can't be used to create heaven on earth because they come from the old paradigm and have built into them beliefs that are inconsistent with the world we're trying to create. So you can't use the old paradigm methods to create the new paradigm. We'll also be dealing with issues of power and money and how to structure your purpose as a business or an organization. But along with that, we'll be looking at issues of systems change. I hope you'll join us.